in my mind, I have faith. So every day I try to wake up and be a little better person. You know what I mean? I seriously do. And I try to do things a little different every day in the sense of in the consistency of my life. So it's really trying to do things better in what I do every day. The purpose is, man, really my drive to be successful in business and in life and my relationships, and to my people that believe in me. All those things are like my daily purpose, and I feel like people can find purpose on their own with just looking at what they enjoy doing every day.
Coach Rivera, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. I've really it's been huge for me like, when you've come down to Petty all these time over the last 2 years. I picked up wrestling a little bit later on, like halfway through high school, but seeing you coming down to elite wrestling, coming training with you, it's been huge. It's seeing you, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last year, and I'm really excited for having you on today. So thank you for coming down.
That's great. That's great that you feel that way. I wonder if everybody feels that way, but I'm I'm real pleased to do it. And Coach Frank and Bennett are two great men that you see a whole different path on the side of coaching versus training. Like here, I'm a trainer. I mean, I put teams out here every now and again, but more and more I'm getting away from that because the whole wrestling game has changed a lot over the years, and a lot of it we have to get better. You have to spend the time to get better. You can't just wrestle all the time. Yeah. So, but I've really been enjoying it, and I'm meeting all you guys, and I'm really excited to see what the future brings to you guys because you're all hardworking guys and girls really taken into the wrestling game. So it's neat that to watch that and see the culture Coach Frank has developed over there.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. So I know you started wrestling very early on. So talk me through some of the earliest days. I know that what did it kind of look like when you first started? Like I know you mentioned the game has changed a lot. So what did wrestling look like in your earliest times?
In my earliest times, I mean, I started because my brother wrestled, and I was just a younger brother, and my dad was coaching at that rec level, and I kind of followed him into there and that system and process and lifestyle. And I don't know, wrestling back then was more pure. It wasn't about going to college. It wasn't going to do this or that. You were really into the challenge of wrestling. And today it's just so much more like all year sports. So, with the evolution of all of that, the athlete has had to evolve dramatically as well. And that's the cool part about wrestling because in the beginning, it was such a sport thought of like Neanderthal guys that had no brains and they're not smart. Now, today you have some of the best people in the world that were wrestlers. You know what I mean? Proving that is over, and it's now the greater man is now wrestling or the greater woman because they're willing to take on that challenge in addition to taking on life. You know what I mean? So, um, and then to see how it is today, so competitive, having guys at the highest level, seeing my son and then like, Alex Ninney or Matt Henricks, who are both seniors this year, scholarship athletes next year, watching them compete at the national level this past weekend and just being in the matches and Matt lost in the final and Alex lost in the semi and to the top guys in the country. Like Alex is number 3, he lost to number 2 in sudden victory. And Matt was winning the whole match and the kid scored late and won 3-2. He scored with 8 seconds left. So this sport is so tough in so many ways. And to watch that development of you young men and women and be part of it and know that I can help is just a gift and a pleasure every day I get to do it.
When you mentioned that right now, it seems that a lot of the motivations behind it might be connected to college and getting and finding success in other ways. What do you think were some of the more pure motivations people felt when they were wrestling back in your time, or the reasons they decided to pursue it?
I wouldn't say they're all gone. So one that you feel every day is that camaraderie with your teammates. Like that in wrestling versus other sports is usually a little bit different. I don't know if I played a lot of other sports, but never really was all in like I was with wrestling. But I just know my group of friends of wrestlers, there's so many characters in there and people of confidence, no matter what they are or who they are, you know, and that's pretty special about that, a wrestling crowd, you know. Um, yeah, so like that would be one is the comedy. Other things where I love the challenge of being prepared. I always found that to be like a thing. I don't know. I ran and I did my push-ups and I always just like I knew guys in my local area that were the good guys that like a lot of them are coaches now and I would you know you had to know that you were going to have to beat them and all that stuff. I mean the challenge of wrestling is so much more than the game itself, and that's what makes it such a great life lesson more so than just the sport.
In what ways would you say you've seen wrestling shape other aspects of your life, right? I've heard you mention many times how, wrestling is a tool that we kind of use to communicate with each other, but it goes on to build other aspects of yourself and other pillars of your life. So in what ways in your life have you seen wrestling shape other parts of who you are?
One is in my work. Like I always felt like I won a national title and a state title, and the goals I set, I was learning that I'm pretty good at accomplishing them. And then I decided I didn't want to go work with anyone, and I kind of do my technology sales. Started my elite wrestling business, what, 35 years ago, 30 years ago at this point. I mean, it started as just in a high school and all those things. I want to say wrestling gave me the confidence in myself to bet on myself for one. Two, being a little guy, man, you always meet little guys that have little man disease, you know, and they're like, man, that guy's such a jerk. And they like, or this guy, and they're like, because he's a little dude and he, you know, I always had confidence in being the little guy I am. And that's definitely from the sport because when I was little, I didn't feel that way. And then as I started to wrestle by like seventh grade, I started taking into my heritage of being Puerto Rican. I was living in Manalapan, and there wasn't a whole lot of Puerto Ricans over there, you know, a lot of Italians and Jewish people. And yeah, like I just remember as wrestling going, giving me the confidence to be who I was gonna be and proud of who I was, like my parents and all that kind of stuff. Um, and that was the thing in wrestling, you know, you don't have a name on your back or your singlet. So you never really, your parents never get that prop in wrestling unless the people, if you're good, they know who you are and then they know who you're like. My dad's famous because of his grandchild Seabass, you know, and it's just it's the greatest of things, you know. So like that, I took a lot of pride in my dad being known because his kid was good, you know, and that was all cool with my parents. And to this day, they're big wrestling fans. And even in the Big Ten, like they gave my dad a media pass and he's like on the mat. Like, how do you get down there? He's like, see, that's his grandpa, you know. I'm like, all right, all right. It's just that wrestling is, you know, it shaped a lot about me and like how and then once you start teaching and having a school, it starts to dictate like who you are a little bit and what you're selling, right? I can't be selling one thing and being something else. And I'm not good at doing that. That's why I just always kept it real. And at first that hurt my business, the wrestling school, because if you didn't know me, you thought I was nuts. But then over time, that got to a point where like the good guys we were making good guys, and people start to believe in the results instead of what they hear, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm not wrestled nearly as long as you have, right? I've just wrestled probably for maybe 2 or 3 years. But what I've heard so many people mention, what I've kind of seen in parts is that you see a lot of different sides of the extremity of life through one sport, right? There'll be moments where you feel like, wow, this feels amazing. And there's moments where like you feel like your soul is being pulled out of your chest. So I'm assuming that over like this extended period of time, it wasn't always like, wow, the sport's amazing. Wow, I love every part of it. There's probably moments I'm assuming you felt where maybe it wasn't as great and maybe it was more challenging. So do you remember back to any of those memories that maybe this kind of fits?
Yes. The ones where your soul got ripped out, absolutely. Taking second in the state my junior year and getting my like embarrassed like 12-3. Like up to that moment, I'm in the state finals. I like my high school, my kid, my childhood heroes are in the audience, like supporting me, and I get my ass kicked, like you said, and your just soul just like ripped out of you. And it it was so hurtful and humbling because I did so much to win, you know? And the motivation that set on me, then I win a state title and I the next year and I get OW. And that's the beginning of the the I set the goal I'm gonna accomplish thing. Like in high school, like throughout my childhood, I always just wanted to be a state champ. So like you dream of a state title when you're like me, almost 12 years before I even get an opportunity to wrestle it, you know? And that's why when people say, well, you're a national title, you dream of a national title after you're out of high school. It's like 4 years. I dreamed 15 years for a state title. You know what I mean? So that was devastating that junior year. And then going to college and taking eighth, third, second, first. That process of every year being a little better, but not great. Then that senior year when you're a little better and great and you win, you're like, what would at that point? Yeah, so you had every year that disappointment. After I placed freshman year, eighth, I'm like, I'm coming back, and I made it to the finals twice there, and I lost once again, and I made it to the semifinal, and I got beat, and I had to come back for that third. You know what I mean? So I know what this heart that the heart, but I also have those moments of glory. That's why you train for the glory. And if you're like one of my guys that get glory, I always text to people, enjoy the glory, because we work and struggle so hard, and the glory comes and goes so fast that you got to enjoy it when it comes. You know, if it's an hour or a day or a week, it never lasts that long because your next match, you're only as good as your last match. You know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
could be 2 days, a match. But yeah, I would say all those things. I felt what every wrestler has felt, you know? And then, but throughout all of that, you learn to another principle that, like, would you say other things, that hard work. You start to realize the hard work and the consistent hard work is a game changer. So now you're starting to upgrade your consistent workout because you know not only the workout's doing it, the consistency's doing it. So what do I got to change in there? Let me make it a little harder, right? So that process over 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, 5 years of college, all those things help develop my work ethic that like on a Martin Luther King day, I'm here at 9 in the morning doing what I do. I don't see life as an on-off switch. It's just always on, and I get some sleep in between and
Yeah.
enjoy my family, be comfortable in my finances where I can enjoy my people and do things that I want to do. And I'm working on it
You
every day.
talked, yeah, I like how you explained like how sure there were many like difficult moments, right? But the glory kind of made it worth it. And it's developed this work ethic in you that, you know, your approach to life will never be the same because of what you've managed to overcome. But when you're there in those difficult moments, like those soul crushing moments, for many people, the overwhelmingness of it, the mental state they enter in that period, it's so hard for them that they almost want to run away from that and not want to experience that. What would you say helped you most in overcoming those moments, or even just trying to, like when your mental state might be poor after maybe a big loss or one of those
Perspective,
moments?
perspective. Perspective has always been something in my life. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from, but I've always had a balance. I've always found a way, like if I'm wrestling a lot, to get on my skates and do distance in my skates. I love doing that kind of stuff, or riding my mountain bike, or getting on my dirt bike, getting on my street bike, like other things that I enjoy. I've always had that in me. Even when I was a kid, man, I was riding dirt bikes a lot, even when I would train wrestling a lot. And that balance, that perspective, I wasn't great at it all the time, but I definitely got better there in high school, taking a second, have to come back. And then in college, I grew through it because all those years of just struggling through. But like college, I was struggling with trying to figure out if I was the dumb guy at college or am I not trying. Then I started trying in class. So that's taking more of my time. And my grades are getting real good. And I'm starting to realize, man, I could be smart here if I try a little harder and wrestle a little bit less. So I start taking off like the fall semesters. Yeah, my
So
college wrestling story is one of trial and error based on how I'm going to do it, and no one else is going to tell me. And probably my coaches aren't happy at that time, but at the end, when they met me and know my kid now, they know I went first circle and it was for my journey. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, when I left, I went to NC State at a high school, so I went Division 1. And when I got there, I did a year and a half there. I redshirted. Then in my redshirt freshman year, I lost my wrestle off. So in that fall semester, after that fall, I didn't want to sit again. So that's when I decided my grades were terrible there. I was just caught up in the getting out of high school, being so good at and doing the wrestling thing, that having some freedom. I was the guy that failed in that transition. You know what I mean? And but when I came back and I went to TCNJ, I started maturing and figuring things out a little bit. You know what I mean? And that's why I give my son so much credit, man. It ain't easy to go D1. These guys that do that, be good in D1 and do good in school, or go to a hard academic school like Northwestern, Princeton, Cornell's, Stanford's. You know, those guys, those athletes that are pulling that off, those are special people. You know, and that's what I learned going through my way, and through my way of getting through what I was going through to get where I was destined to be, I guess, which was that national title. But I didn't get it there like maybe everybody else gets there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people I've seen complain about the difficulty between balancing, academics and athletics at the same time. And that's always often a source of excuses that, oh, this is the reason why I'm not able to be successful at this. So what are some of the things that you used a lot early on, like in terms of when you're at college, balancing the athletics and the academic piece of it? I know you mentioned that
Time
sorry.
that the time management that they're preaching to you guys right now. And you guys have such an advantage at Petty. I mean, you technically are going to college. You know, you guys are in a college environment. You're responsible to wake up and get to class and do everything that it will be no different for you guys for you boarded students. When you go to college, there'll be no difference except more people. You know what I mean? And probably a little bit more fun because you don't have to be in your room at 8 o'clock. You know, so other than that, that's what I mean. So time management is huge. The other thing is procrastination. You know, that we're all guilty of it. Doing that's another thing wrestling teaches you: doing difficult things when you don't want to do them. You know, and that in school, learning that process as well. That's a principle of wrestling. And when you get to college, if you can motivate to do the hard things like go to class and be part of that student community, you're going to succeed there. The teachers will help you. You're obviously a good enough student if you're doing that stuff, and I watch it happen all the time now. I mean, these kids today, they don't have half the problems in the academics that the old athletes used to have.
Yeah, for
Everybody's
sure.
pretty in tune.
Also, going back to something you mentioned before, that a perspective change is what really helped you to overcome some of those difficult moments. When you say perspective change, like what do you really mean by that? Like, do you mean that looking at things like on a more broader like timeline, like looking at maybe
I'm
like
not
your
just
life
a
as a whole,
wrestler.
or okay,
I'm not just a wrestler. Like my perspective in my brain isn't I'm just a wrestler. Like it doesn't define me. It's something I love to do, and I do a lot of time doing it. You know, but my kid defines me, my wife defines me. Like those kind of things. And as a younger person, I just always had that. I wanted to be good. I tried my best to be good. I had no pressure at home or anyone really forcing anything on me. It was all through the true love of the game. And when we lost back then, it wasn't the end of the world. Like you watch guys today, if you listen to Full Wrestling or Mike Malaconico with his thing, um, these athletes, like athletes that really do this stuff, the sooner you could figure all this stuff out, the lot more fun it is. Because the worst thing about wrestling is the stress that you have to win. No, you have to try to win. You're not always gonna win. If you prepared for that opportunity, there's a good chance you will win, but there's no guarantees. And when you could figure that out and really try for your whole match, that is when, and you're trying to minimize, like a lot of people worry about wrestling in the sense of like how they wrestled. And I feel like it's more like when I'm critiquing my son, it's more about what version of Sebastian did we see? You know, was it the best version of you? Because that's all you can control. So when you could get these perspectives and think about, like, did I do my work all week? Did I, did I eat right? Did cut the weight right? Did everything right that you can control? Well, then when you really believe that, that is a perspective that will change your wrestling for your life. And then later, as you get older, like me, that, as wrestling and you start getting other things in life, you start applying these concepts all around. I mean, I own two different businesses, and I also do apparel sales. I do some real estate. So I feel like wrestling has given me the ability. Another thing would be is to do your homework. Like it shows you how you're going to be great. If you look at your competition, you do your homework, you come prepared. Just like if I'm getting plumbing work done, I never just get one quote. I'm always getting three. You know what I mean? I'm doing my due diligence. So when at the end of it, I know when I sit at that moment, there's nothing stressing me out. I'm prepared. I can have those perspectives that I tell you about. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
preparation is creates a lot of mind freedom,
yeah, for
because that
sure.
stress and anxiety can take a lot of space in the mind.
Mhm. I want to return also to another piece you talked about, right? With the glory piece of it, that
Yeah.
you go out and you win, and the problem is that the glory doesn't last very long, right? And one of the reasons you said was that because you're focused on getting the next thing, right? You're focused on the next match that you have to prepare for. Would you say that the same idea of the glory not lasting long even happened at the highest level, where you finally maybe achieved the goal you've been set out for so long, so just getting number one, getting the first place in the NCAA? Do you think even in that time the glory finally maybe stayed for a period of time, or even in that time there is this maybe the sense of like there's something more that needs to be done?
There's always that glory time of after the season, and that never disappears. So those months after the season until you have to prove it again are all a great time. You're getting awards and you're getting recognized by the Sure, and all those things. So I mean, that glory is worth the battle. I mean, it's worth the fight, and it's worth the disappointment when you don't get it, because when you do get it, it's worth all that. And like I got to do it in myself like that. But then I get to watch people like a Frankie Edgar go through the trials and tribulations of his journey. And to watch him just go up and down constantly like a heartbeat, and then finally get to that peak, in his late 20s, early 30s type, is just goes to show that like life's a long race. And you might not win today, but if you keep doing the right things in life, you're gonna be a winner. And if that winner might be, instead of a state or national title, you're a world champion. You know what I mean? So that's where like Frankie, and even, like I'm so fortunate to see all this winning around me with these kids and the high school and the college and the senior level, and then Frankie in the MMA game, that my perspective now gets to see everything I learned on my own, and then on the outside watching it all. And I can only tell you that the sooner you young guys can figure out these perspectives, the quicker you'll get off of the therapies and the medications and the labels of this and that. The ADD kids, like I need ADD kids, that ADHD and all that. And after they get really bought into wrestling, the sport takes them off their medication because they're just using the energy instead of being held back from it.
Do you think that's because they have some core thing to focus on, that it's able to divert most of their attention, that kind of solves some of the other parts of their life? Or
I do. I definitely believe that the discipline and focus it takes for wrestling helps them in so many ways, man. I mean, I literally like just having this thought in my head right now. I have like 5 kids that I know that were heavily medicated. Their parents telling me they're too much, and through the process of wrestling, they were little kids. By the time they're third, fourth grade, they're on no medication. They're doing great in class. They're doing good on the mat. They're paying attention. You're not calling them by their name every day. Like it's amazing how it happens. And the parents will comment about it, man. The
And
parents will
I,
comment
yeah,
to me about it.
I'd imagine that another big piece that's contributing to that problem is just that we live in such an unnatural way today that, with maybe screens and sitting down all day, that 100% can most likely contribute to some of the problems with ADHD and some of the other mental illnesses people complain about. But, obviously wrestling puts you in a more disciplined state, but it also puts you in more of a primal state, right? You're kind of using your body the way it was meant to be used. And do you think that also contributes to this piece as well?
I do. And now I'll give you the other thing. With my nonprofit, I just became a vendor for special needs. And there's Down syndrome kids that are interested in wrestling in a format that works for their system. And I had a young man come in last week as a trial with the state, and I showed them what I had in mind for the program for these kids, and it was all wrestling related. This young man he's 22 years old, had the time of his life doing things that we take for granted every day in a wrestling room. You know what I mean? And his mom was like in tears that she's been looking for this for so long. Like I said, he's 22 years old, but there's nowhere, no one offers this to this community. So I'm hoping now with my first thing coming together that the word will get out, and I truly believe that this sport's amazing for everything. And like with her, I showed her some of the stuff with the handbags, and she's like, that's what we go to therapy for. I showed her some of the other stuff. She goes, at therapy doesn't even do it that much. And I'm like, this is what we do. So like, I believe wrestling is an amazing tool for a lot of people. And if you use it in different ways, if you have the right personality and you really like helping people, you could change lives. I do it and I love it. I love it to death.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Now, I've never had like severe issues with like mental health or anything like that. I've relatively been fine. But despite that, I think if I compare the years prior to wrestling to now, I think your whole mental state is just different. Like it feels completely different. Like things that would slightly bother me here and there, I think that now they're just gone. Like little things that used to bother you on a day to day, whether it's like small problems or things people say, that I think it's just so much better for your mental state. And also it kind of helps you find peace, I've realized. Now, would you say that it's helped you in some similar way with your mental state? Like maybe if you compare times, I know you've probably been there's probably been a period of time where you've gone long without wrestling, right? If you compare that to times when you're like always wrestling, like always working with the kids at Elite, would you say there's a difference between how you observe your mental state during these different times, or
Would I disappoint you if I told you I never stopped?
that no, that's amazing.
Yeah, I honestly can tell you I went right from college to working in Connecticut. I was the assistant coach at Central Connecticut State University. And up there, I started doing the local town in Glastonbury where I was living. That's where I started Elite Wrestling. I was doing privates and I picked up a town contract. And then I came home to do the technology in my family business and started Elite Wrestling from there, doing the Tom's River Wrestling Club. I never stopped wrestling. I can tell you that I got hurt last year and I had surgery, and that's the first time that I had to stop, and I couldn't wrestle for like 6 months. And I can tell you that it did a lot of things for someone like me that I've been on the mats my whole 50 years or 50. I'll be 55 this year, I think, or yeah, 55. And I started wrestling at 5, so I've literally been on the mats for 50 years. Um, and missing those 6 months, I would say that it was a little scary in the sense of I love doing what I do every day, and not being able to do it the way I do it would really stop me from doing it. You know what I mean? Like if I can't wrestle, I'm not gonna sit on the side and blow the whistle. That's not happening. So and I love doing my technology thing. So like at 5 o'clock, I stopped doing this stuff, but I literally could sell all night, like just trying to get new buyers, finding them and doing all that crap. You know what I mean? But the wrestling is that balance perspective part that I tell you about. So all of that and a bag of nuts is really why I guess wrestling is so important to me. The mental state, like you're talking about, physical state that it helps me with being at this age and, you know, feeling like I do. Um, the ability to impact the kids in a real way. Like if you're not wrestling, you guys, some of you guys don't listen. Like if I can't beat you up, some dudes are like, I ain't listening to you. So like it's funny when people come join my club, it's almost like I'm trying out because they'll challenge me to wrestle and they'll come at me all hot and heavy like they're gonna beat me. And then I put them in their place for a second, and then they get all like weird. And I'm like, yo, if you just took me down and put me on my back, would you be coming to my club? You know? And they're like, yeah, I guess not. I'm like, yeah, man. I said, I'll help you now. I just have to show you. Like, so like not being able to do that, you know what I mean? All of a sudden now they listen to that same kid is like, hey, how do you do this? Hey, how do you do that? So like not being able to earn that respect instead of dictating respect, I guess is what it is. I like to earn the respect from the kids, you know? And if you're not wrestling them, you're dictating the respect because you're the coach. You know what I mean? So it's just the way I approach the game, and that time off, it didn't. It was scary like that, and then I felt like it brought another part of me into my life. Like I was able to do things I never get to do because I'm always doing this, and so that kind of stuff. Um, on the mental side, you know, I'm always competitive in a lot of things I'm doing. Like, and I'm competitive with myself. Like I don't really put a face on it because who am I competing against? I know some people would say other clubs. I really like those guys. I really, I'm glad they're in the sport helping other kids. So I'm like, I'm competitive in the sense I like, I am competitive in the sense of I can make that kid better, and I want to do that, and I want to prove that because he's going to go out there and win shit. You know what I mean? That I'm down with. Me building a team of like guys that do or don't want to do it and all that, like a in an institution of academics, that doesn't really excite me. Like with when you can have like individuals that are from different areas and all have that same common want in wrestling and everything else. You know what I mean? And I feel fortunate when I get to meet you guys, and you guys show up in the barn. And you know, I just posted a podcast, Coach Bono from Wisconsin, guys that have been here like 20 years ago with my old coaches. They all talk about like how tough this room is, you know, and I take a lot of pride in that, and the people and the relationships that I've forged in that fire are my elite family, and like a lot of pride to who I am and what I do, you know?
One of the aspects I really admire about you and your life is the fact that, you know, you mentioned that you're still very, very healthy and that your body's in amazing shape. Would you attribute most of that solely to wrestling, or are there other aspects of your life that you've
And
improved?
those other sports that I mentioned, like the motocross stuff over the years has definitely helped me with my legs and my back. Um, I skate. Like I know that's corny as heck. I'm an 80s guy, man. You know, I'm from that funny, you make fun of that time. Um, I have they're not rollerblades in my defense, okay? They're speed skates. So they're like the wheels are like that big, and there's five of them. And they do you like when you skate in them, like in that stance position, it helps my back and my lower legs, and I do it at the shore. So it's always awesome going down like Sunset on the Bayview Boulevard and like ripping in my stance and the sun setting, you know, I love that. So I feel like that balance of the other, I like to run, you know, I don't like I'm not a runner. I like the pain of running. So like I don't like to run. I only run maybe once or twice. Like I wrestle a lot. But when I'm trying to stay in shape and I'm not wrestling a lot, I run because run is the best substitution of pain and suffering of a workout that there is, you know, and that's wrestling. So, but yeah,
What about besides athletically, like maybe aspects of diet and such? What would you recommend for people who are trying to stay healthy and have an expanded health span?
I mean, everybody has their way of doing it, you know. That's the thing with nutrition. You gotta find what works for you. Because if not, it becomes part of the struggle, you know, and like the struggle of life when you're not enjoying food. I mean, when you can't wait for a day, you could tell like this is not fun. Like so, the nutrition. I mean, you find a balanced diet through either the meal plans. I know I saw your dining hall. You could find a good balanced meal down there every meal, you know. So if you didn't know how to do it, I would just Google it. But man, if you just keep it simple all the time with the rice, chicken, and meats, fish, vegetables, like you're going to be solid there. And that's what I eat. And pasta, you limit that stuff, like the major carbs, you know. But like with wrestling, once a week to get them like on a Sunday, like a big pasta meal on Sunday, you know that thing's going to sit in you till Tuesday. So you could get a couple workouts. If you don't have a match till Wednesday, you know, you won't eat a lot Monday morning, Monday afternoon. You'll start to get hungry. You'll make through practice. You could have a little snack. Like the little things like that. I feel like you got to find what works for you, man. Like I see Sebastian starts real far out and he eats balanced meals. He cooks his meals like real food and all that. I see Frankie, you know, he does eat clean, bro. When I'm doing stuff, you know, I used to eat clean, bro. Jimmy's meals are real simple and tasteful and convenient. And the guys I put on that, you know, like the guys that use it in the club, I watch them succeed with that type of meal plan in their life. You know what I mean? So nutrition is really finding your way through what is suggested in and like some people just eat too much. Let's be honest, you know, like limiting your portions is like to walk away not hungry but not full is not a bad thing, you know. And I think that's something I do from wrestling. Like some people, my kids make fun of me that I have like an eating disorder, but I don't. I just have a process of how I eat. I do, but yeah, like if you don't have to overeat a lot, you know, you can eat small meals or, you know, fast certain parts of the hours of the day. And you'd be surprised, like Frankie Edgar, a world-class athlete, how like little he actually eats or like how like size-wise it is throughout the day. He might eat often when he's in fight mode, but like now he's all shredded up, looks like a monster, and you know, he just eats properly. And that daily workout, you know, everybody's got to work out a little in the morning, even if it's only 15 minutes, it really will help.
Talk to me through some of the early days of when you started your club. What were some of the motivations and visions you had, like when you first started elite wrestling?
I think that the main motivation was I already was a coach. My dad was like the rec coach. So when I was a little kid, I in seventh, eighth grade, I remember coaching the rec team with my dad. I have a picture in eighth grade or high school freshman year. I remember being like in a sweater as the coach in the group picture. I don't know why I look so dark. I got like two lights on me here, but
That's not
um,
too bad. Yeah,
no, all right.
it's okay.
So yeah, I was coaching at a young age, and I always even when I was a wrestler, I would always, whoever was in my group, I would always teach. I would like, no one in our lightweight stunk. Like we always looked out for each other. They would teach me, I would teach them. And we always progressed. Me, Tig Thompson, Todd Thompson, Ethan Waller. Ethan is still one of my closest friends today. And man, we just came through the Manalapan system as a group, like a group of us. And yeah, like that process of going through all that and having friends and all that stuff of teaching, it was just in me. And I just like, but what I did learn is on the way, I always wanted to, like, my dad's a businessman. He always owned his, he always like tried to own his own stuff doing business, you know, like this. And he also in the Yorktown Deli at a time. Um, I when I started wrestling, like I always in my mind is telling me like wrestling is wrestling and people underplay what it is. And then like the Edge School of Wrestling had started in North Jersey when I was in Connecticut. And I had wrestled some of his alumni, like wrestled at the same time, these guys, the Monaco brothers. And when I was in Connecticut and I started coaching, I had been getting paid as a kid already. I'm like, man, I can, they're asking me if I can coach this. I just need to figure out a bill rate, like how to do that. And that was the hardest part, is trying to get a value out of people for something they thought should be free because you just wrestle, you know? And but then once you start getting your value or figuring it out, that's where that all came into play. And that took a while figuring that out until I met Frankie Edgar. Because then his dad came up to me and said, I own a plumbing business, a commercial plumbing business. I'm too busy. I can't drive Frankie all the way up to the edge. And I had come back to New Jersey already. I was coaching in Toms River. He goes, if you train Frankie, I'll pay what those people pay to go to the edge. And that's when it really started. And it was like $1,500 for the year. You know what I mean? And before that, you're just taking $30 here and this and that kind of stuff. When I started Toms River Wrestling Club, I was getting like $35 a night. All those things, man. You just start to grow, you start winning, start negotiating off my winning, like the kids winning, the team winning the Jersey Shore. Start seeing they will pay for winning. And then that's where I really start figuring out, all right, I don't want to do it like this anymore. I'm kind of at a cap through this way. So I'm going to just start my business, and I'm going to offer more services. I'm not going to just do training. And I would get services from like guys that own real estate that wanted to put activities in their building, like in Hamilton. Or I would get a contract with like West Windsor. That's how I met you guys, through my services, you know? Yeah, and that's how like I start building streams, income streams, other than just memberships, privates, outside services. I'm getting like my coaches helping me. I'm giving them good pay to go out to the sites and cover practices. We have like Hamilton, Manalapan, Jackson, one more we had at that time, Toms River. We have 4 running, and then COVID hits. And then you're like paying rent all over the place, not collecting any money. And I shut them down. I pay off my rents, and I leave those places just even. And I moved back here. And I've been back here since, just here alone since COVID. And we're
So
probably the biggest we've ever been.
so was the Elite Wrestling Club in Jackson still going on during COVID, or did that also have to shut down with everything?
I kind of kept running through that. It's a private property, people coming if they felt comfortable, and we would check their temperature at the door and all that stuff. And we definitely did our precautions, and thank God it all worked out. We never had any outbreaks or anything, and we got to wrestle and kept some people sane. Like you're saying, imagine those parents that have those kids in the house. We were during COVID, I literally would do online classes with like 50 people. And I'm like in my house going over moves. Craziest thing ever, man. It was the weird, COVID was crazy. But it just goes to show how much people need wrestling. Like these people like wanted it. And I'm like doing COVID over this, like, all right, you're gonna grab that arm over there. And it was wild. It was wild. But it also showed me like, man, people, they love this stuff, man. We got to make sure we keep it for them. And that's when I really kind of started reopening. I only did a couple of days online where it was like, yeah, man, we got to get back open for these people. And we did. And it's been great since. And that's really how we kind of turned into that, and then obviously throughout all that, the wrestling, as we're building, I mean, Frankie's coming up in the UFC game. So I'm doing my technology company, doing elite wrestling, and then I'm disappearing every once in a while to travel with Frankie around the world. You know what I mean? Just overall, just a tremendous opportunity for me in life to have the experiences I have. And like now this summer, I'm going to the Olympics to watch my kid wrestle. I got to sit in Abu Dhabi and watch Frankie win a world title. You know what I mean? Holding his belt, crying like a little baby. You know what I mean? It was just tremendous. These opportunities in life, that's what I mean. You gotta just keep moving forward, looking for the next bright day, because the dark days are always going to be there. That can you look past them and not dwell on them and just work through them instead of making them bigger than what they are. I mean, life's a pretty big thing, and these little things along the way, some people just make so large when in fact they could kind of take a different perspective and possibly see a faster solution and less drama in their life, and then the stress turns into anxiety. And, that discomfort of life is self-inflicted in a lot of ways, I feel.
How would you compare the coaching side of wrestling to actually wrestling itself, right? Now that you've seen both worlds, does it feel like different when you're coaching
Yeah.
compared to wrestling, or how would you describe that?
There's been three phases. One phase is when I was the athlete that just finished coaching. You're like a teammate at that point. Like I'm gonna beat you up or help you, but beat you up and give you a wrestler that's your size and what you're gonna wrestle to be great. And that's that first stage when you got the fire. You're in your 20s. Yeah, that stage is funny as a coach because you look back on it, you're like, damn man, you were still getting after it. Now as an older guy, it's different. So all right, that's the one stage. Then then you get Frankie starting to get to a level where you can't really beat him anymore. You can't really provide the look that he needs for anything. So now you have to accept you're a coach. And I mean, there's a balance. I'm still getting to work with them, but not like when we're in fight camp, we're bringing in people that need what we need. You know what I mean? So your mind starts to change there and you're becoming more analytical now, right? Is his feet right? His hands right? And I'm not the guy to fix it, but I'm the guy to go to the guy that's going to like, we all work as a team. We communicate, we see things. Everybody brings something a little different. And thank God we have Mark Henry as the team leader and Ricardo, Almeida, who just really brought a lot of experience to it as we went along. So in that stage, I learned how to be more of a coach on the other side. But Sebastian's still around. So you still have a lot of angst in you. You still have that concern of him coming up, a lot of fire in me still on the wrestling side. The guy's starting to catch me though. We're creating wrestlers now that can compete with me. You know what I mean? And that was a turning point in my coaching. Now you went from, I just told you, earning people's respect. Hopefully they came in young enough where I got them, because if they come in like Matt Henrik right now, I'm not scoring a point. You know what I mean? So those things start to change aspects of how you have to play the game and coach the game, what value you're bringing to the person, what are you trying to bring to that person, what do they need? You know what I mean? And those different things. And then Sebastian, your own son, beating you after you start, he gets to a point now, Frankie's beating you. Then you sick Frankie on your kid. And now your kid's beating Frankie. You know what I mean? And now it's me on the outside saying, wow, these two are animals. Don't touch me, and that is another perspective of like, you're accepting it because you created those guys. But those were changing points in my coaching life or training point where I'm making adjustments to continue the value in our progress moving towards the top of whatever we're chasing. You know what I mean? And I was Frankie's manager before we got a real manager. I was like the guy that looked at contracts before we had a real lawyer and all that stuff. And then with Sebastian, with his scholarships and, like dealing with the Big Ten offers and contracts with that stuff. Yeah. And then doing sponsorships for Frankie, all that kind of stuff. You're just learning like where you had to adjust to so many different things that the coaching has changed so much, but I've gotten so much better. I am so much better today as a guy. I can watch your video. I can see all the hands. I can see all the feet. I can envision the pressures. I can watch and then be able to put that on paper and give it as notes. If your coach showed you the other day, when I was sitting there watching that match, I wrote a whole page of notes. You know what I mean? I'm better today than I was then. Perspective, again, allows me to be able to keep the important things in front, really concentrate on the things that need to be better. And they might be just as little as humbleness. You know, like some guys get to a point in their careers where they're kind of celebrities, and that's wrestling and fighting. And that, if that's accepted around them or amongst their home team, that creates failure, you know? And that's something that in our crowd, in our group, me being able to be one of the leaders and keeping it real allows the people around me to keep it real, and our communication and who we are and what we stand for to our kids is real, and it's out there and they know what we stand. And you have this group of that, and all of that is seen now from a place of up here, where one day there was a day when I was down there, you know, and it's a great place to be. I wouldn't change it. I mean, I would like to be younger in my body so I could wrestle a little bit harder at times, but other than that, man, it's like, now you always know why, like, Nick Saban's amazing at football coaching, or like Belichick. They're like 70 years old. They've been coaching like 60 years. And like, people are like, how do they see that? Perspective. That's how they see it.
So when you say you've improved as a coach, would you say it's more of like just from the subconscious side of it, that you're just seeing things differently, that more in the background is happening, or were there like literal things you feel like you've
In
changed?
the past, you would have to assume what you thought. Now you kind of know what you think you know. Like, if he didn't have his left foot down, so how could he apply back pressure if he wasn't driving across the body? Right. So like now, like with the knowledge I know and all the wrestling I've done, I can see a picture and see a million words. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm better. I'm better today because I'm not wondering anything really. Like, I'm watching what you're doing and I'm able to see. I can question you on it. You can answer me on it. We could talk about it. We can figure it out if it was on the negative, you know. And you have little things like, even as simple as Alex Ninney this weekend. I mean, he's wrestling a great guy in the country, second guy in the country. He got to his legs 4 times. That dude didn't touch Alex's legs. You know what I mean? And that 4 times he couldn't finish. It's a little thing that will fix that for him. You know, do I have the answer? Not necessarily. In those moments, that's where the great guy is great. They'll figure it out. They got to figure it out for themselves. There's techniques we teach, and he knows them. But in that moment to execute, that's where greatness is found, in that adjustment. And sometimes you don't find it, you know, you lose in sudden victory. But the fact that you're in that conversation or in that situation to have that opportunity to make that decision, you'll be there again. And next time you'll be able to probably pull it off because you've been there, you know? So all those things, that's what I mean. The mileage matters in wrestling, you know, and then mileage matters in life. That's why old men are so, and women are so wise. I love sitting down with older men, and they're not getting much older than me at this point. It's getting hard, but you know, that 70-year-old that's sitting at the bar and I'm out eating dinner, and hey, and they'll have their military hat on and be, thank you for your service, you know, and you'll get a conversation going, and the next thing you know, man, they're hitting you with some wisdom within like 6 sentences, and you're like, damn, that the greatest generation that ever lived, you know, the guys that actually fought wars and stood up for shit, you know what I mean? And yeah, that's what I mean. The experience definitely is something that helps you be better at everything we do, and coaching's no different.
And even from your perspective as a coach, it's probably been amazing to see the development of your own people from where they began to where they are now. How would you describe that?
It's it's fulfilling, and not all of them get to be the best, you know, but I watch a lot of kids find their greatness. And that's what's important to me. It is, you know, only some guys are going to be the best wrestler guys. And I'm lucky to have a kid like gosh, thank you, whoever did that. But, you know, that is like such a blessing with how much time I put into this gig and all the love I have for it. But, you know, not everybody's going to do that. I have some of my fondest moments with guys that won districts. You know, I know a guy like a Billy Tenpenny that's like a doctor today, you know. But that moment when he won districts was probably one of the finest moments of his early life. And another one would be Jack Ponerero. He's a Toms River East kid. He's the at one point, all three brothers were in high school. His dad asked me, please, every one of them needs to be a district champion. And Jack was our last one. He's a senior and he got it. And it was just, you know, like it was like he won a state title, you know, but it was just a district title. And it was like the greatest thing. And I love that. And I like, it's all of that. And it's the guy that doesn't even win a district title. It's the guy that like at Petty, I'm like seeing just growth as people, you know, like it isn't always about wrestling. And that's what I enjoy a lot about Petty is that it challenges me to have to see it more of that because not most of you guys aren't in it like I'm in it or the people I'm around. So that, do we say hi?
Oh yeah, I have headphones in, but
Hey, buddy.
That's off.
So yeah, so it's that where you find that's what's so awesome about wrestling. It allows me to help people find greatness in themselves. And that moment of greatness could be whatever they find. And it might be just a big win in front of your crowd there down in the gym and everybody being fired up for you, man. Those are pretty cool moments. You know what I mean? I got plenty of those in my life and I love them, every one of them. So like that, you know what else is a big one? I'll give you one the other day, and I don't want to use names, but he's the worst kid on the team. He's wrestling one of the best kids in the state, and all he has to do is not get majored. And he comes within a point of not being majored, and the team wins. You know what I mean? Like he was a hero with that loss, you know, and that type of loss. And like that kid, you're able to go up and be like, yeah, boy, you did it. Yeah, but I lost, coach. No, you won for the team. You saved him that point. He would have pinned your ass. You know what I mean? So like that's what's so great. Like a lot of people think it's all about wrestling. And as I get older, it's less. I still love that part of it, but I don't, when I watch them lose now, I'm not like, I'm like, here's why they lost. We got to be better here. Like I totally am like that now. I don't really get all, even my son, I get up at 4 a.m. the other day to watch him wrestle. He wins the first two. And then the third match, he was in the semi and he makes a mistake that you watch him make. And you're like, you don't get mad. You're just like, oh, well, now you got to wrestle the next match and hopefully you don't make that mistake, you know? And he knows as soon as I talk to him in a text, literally, I talk to him right after every match. And literally he's like, I messed that one up. You know, I'm like, all right. You know, he has a great perspective at this day. He's just getting here, but he's starting to get to it where tomorrow's another day to fight. Let's be thankful for it and get better, you know?
What are some of the best moments of your career?
Yeah, the state title. I mean, I like I said, I dreamed forever for that thing. And I did a lot of work for that. I would say the national title as well. I mean, I defied a lot of odds because I didn't wrestle like most people, you know, like my sophomore, when I got there, I took 8th. I transferred in as a sophomore, right? So I get there in March or like February, nationals were in March. I get on the team, I start and I take 8th like a month later. So I just went from a year and a half of not wrestling really, just getting unattached matches to starting on the team and taking 8th in the country. So I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool, right? The next year, the fall comes, I'm like, I need time off. You were talking about love and hate. Here's the hate. We didn't get to this part of the story. Here's the hate. I need a break. Coach is like, what do you mean? I'm like, Coach Ice, rest his soul. I'm like, I need a break. So I'm going to take off this semester of wrestling. I take off the fall semester. I come back in January. And trust me, when I take off, other good guys on the team are like, I want to do what Steve's doing. And Ice is like, heck no, you guys can't do that. And like, I got away with murder with that one. So I come back in January. He lets me back on the team. I get my spot back and I take 3rd. So obviously the coach is that sets a bad example, obviously, right? I just took off a semester. I come back, I take third. Now the whole team wants to do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So the next year comes, and again, I don't want to wrestle in the fall, but I told the coach I wouldn't quit again. So I kept my word and I signed up for the exchange program. And I went to the University of Alabama for the fall semester instead of wrestling. And I took classes and I watched the Tide, and it was amazing. And I came back and he couldn't tell me I couldn't come back on the team because it was a school program. He was very angry. And I come back and I take second. So now that's 2 years in a row that I took off the fall semester, which it's working for me, right? I mean, obviously it's working. So this is what I'm telling you. I'm learning in myself. Sometimes we're told to listen, but sometimes you know better, right? So the senior year, I tell him, hey, I'll just wrestle the whole year. And then that's when I put it on myself, you're going to win it or you messed up. And I won it. So at the end of it all, I believed in myself and I got there. And my system, my way. Some people say I could have won more than once. I wouldn't trade in the experiences I had for that balance, for that perspective, to have another national title. You know
Would you
what I
say
mean?
would you say those breaks in some way help toward that goal or no?
100%. There's not a question in my mind that what I did is why I was so good. There's no question. No question. When I came back, I was hungry. I was fresh. I was healthy. And man, did I want to win. You know? So, yeah, it definitely helped. And that's why when you're talking about balance, I keep bringing that up. Wrestling is too hard to be all, like I've been selling it to my son forever. Like he's always all in. You got to have other things, man. Life demands it. That it just allows you to be more free in those moments when you're doing the things you love, you know? So yeah, I 100% say the way I did it wouldn't work for everyone, but it worked for me and I have no regrets whatsoever.
I've heard you talk before about living by a sense of purpose, and you've described the notion of, waking up every day, having a sense of purpose guide your life and using that as like a guiding force. So talk to me more about that. How has that kind of helped you in your own life, and how do people access a sense of purpose if they feel as if they don't really have that going for them right now?
I'm like secretly a religious guy in my brain. I don't go to church often. I went to Catholic school first to eighth grade. In my mind, I have faith. So every day I try to wake up and be a little better person. You know what I mean? I seriously do. And I try to do things a little different every day in the sense of in the consistency of my life. So it's really trying to do things better in what I do every day, you know? The purpose is, man, really my drive to be successful in business and in life and my relationships, and to my people that believe in me, you know. All those things are like my daily purpose, and I feel like people can find purpose on their own with just looking at what they enjoy doing every day. You know what I mean? And whatever that may be. You obviously like to communicate with people. Well, go to an old folk home for an hour and let them talk and talk to them. You know, like that's something that like that would come to mind for me with you. You know, like I just like that. Like I wake up every day like that, thinking, all right, that's why I just came up with that program for the Down syndrome. Because every day, what am I good at that I can share with someone to make their life a little better? You know? And for me, I mean, I'm so lucky. Like at 5 o'clock here, I start with 6 kids, then another 5 or 6 after that. So like there's 12 opportunities to make someone better at something, right? And that in my life, I'm fortunate to have every day, and younger people as well, you know, which helps. Um, so that perspective of just wanting to do more every day, that and help one person. That's all you got to think. And that could be as simple as open the door at the bagel shop, you know, like letting someone, man, nowadays, can't you feel when you get out of your car, like, and then the other person gets out of the car yesterday? Like, I felt this lady like racing me. And I'm just like, I just slow down. Like you could get in there first. I'll even hold the door for you, ma'am. You know, like yeah, like with today's race, it's always there. So like just that, like just as simple as that. Just open the door for that crazy Karen that needs to get in first. All right. So that's what I would say every day with purpose, you know. And like if I'm a student, my purpose is to do great every day in my classes. Wake up, be attentive in class, know the teacher knows my name. And I wish I did this because I only did it like my junior and senior year in college that I the student that I wish I was earlier. But like I knew my teachers' names, they knew my names. I interacted in class, and man, did it make the experience so much more enjoyable instead of the guy hiding in back, don't call on me, don't call on me. You know what I mean? So like just if I'm a student being prepared, reading that chapter or two every day that you hate doing is like that's a great goal in a day, just reading that and then maybe writing a page of that essay that's due in 2 weeks instead of waiting until 3 days or the night before. You know, it's always easier once you break the ice. All of a sudden, stuff starts to come. Maybe not then, but like days later. And I can even show you just how like I do that kind of stuff. I mean, I literally could go around my desk here and show just like accounts payables, tax gear, business thoughts, quotes for apparel to routers to real estate. Come to this side, a whole box of business cards, just leads, you know, like if I'm ever bored, I look through it. Oh, I haven't talked to that guy in a while, and I'll send an email. Um, Man, you could just keep going. My other plans, like I just incorporated another company down in Puerto Rico to try to open some type of nonprofit wrestling down there for the kids, you know, as I get older and hopefully spend more time there. So like that every day, just having all that. My wife says I'd be crazy if like I would drive her crazy if I didn't have 50 things going. She's kind of not wrong here, you know, like I can always just go to the next thing. And every day I take a bite of everything. I take a bite of everything every day, all the way down to the plumber quotes, you know. I'm not even kidding for like my bathroom at home, like all the way down to that. So like give yourself stuff to do, you know, like every day, like have things to do. And I look forward to it. I look forward to a consistent week. Get up, not be sick, be able to get to work all day, do my privates or go to practice, go home, eat, hang out with my kids or whatever for a little while, Jade if she's around, and then do it again, you know. Like that's what I look forward to that, honestly. I do.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else you want to close with?
No, I appreciate it. I do want to ask you a question or two here. Hey, with like what do you look to get out of wrestling here?
Right. So personally, the piece of wrestling that I love the most is to see how far I can really push myself like beyond my edge, right? And I think definitely from when I started, like there was always a sense of barrier that I felt that okay, I'll settle for right here, or I'll settle for right here. But I think slowly over time, I've started to look at that edge and see why is it over here and why not over here? What's the limit? Can I really push myself to? Like, am I making excuses for that? I can't add these practices for what reason? Right, I have too much academics, or is there a possibility for me to do more than what I'm already doing? And the more and more I push that edge forward, the more and more I see that I am capable of more than I've thought before, that I can go to practices that I might deem like harder at like a club when before I think that, oh, there's no way I could do that, right? Do that on top of my other practices at Petty, do that while maybe running a podcast while doing academics. And my goal is just to really see like obviously not pushing myself to some area where miserable, but doing as much as I can to see what am I really capable of and like where does my potential really lie. And from wrestling itself, it's not that I look at it as it's a miserable thing because personally, from when I started it, I've loved every aspect of it. I think I've talked to you before about the mental health benefits I found from it almost immediately. That when I'm out of season, I'm not wrestling, I don't feel great personally. Like when last summer, after like wrestling all spring, I took some time off because I was in New Hampshire for a period of time. It didn't feel great, honestly. And I felt that I longed to be back in wrestling. And there's some aspects of wrestling that I found that it makes my life so much better on a day to day. It makes me feel more grateful for life and more fulfilled on a day to day basis. And, it's my senior year. So this is technically the last year I'll be wrestling in high school. but I really want to continue some form of that training even beyond, right? I want to, like, I can't imagine going a week without one or two practices, and just for the fun of it, how it makes me feel, the fact that I can keep proving to myself that I'm able to push myself despite wherever I might be in my life. And personally, like, sure, people have goals for being state champs and everything, and considering where I've started and where I'm at right now, I don't think that's a reasonable goal for myself. But I do want to continue to not use that as an excuse to not wrestle in the first place, because there's so many other benefits I found from it that it's honestly just
Yeah.
changed my life over the last 2 years.
And qualifying for nationals, a lot said for that, like getting through that barrier will be big if you can do that. So, I mean, that's all good stuff. And that I'm so glad to hear that about you. But I would also tell you that you don't have to worry about losing wrestling, because when you get out of school, you'll be able to go to your local jujitsu place and
Yeah.
you'll find a lot of joy in that. I'm telling you. And not only will you'll find success in that because you had wrestled, and you'll meet guys that haven't wrestled and they do jujitsu, and you'll find success. I promise you that in your after wrestling thing for sure. Um, but that's great to hear. And the mental health side of that, man, you know, you guys put so much stress on yourselves in that school there, man. And I know that your culture is to like kill it in school and life. I mean, I get that. But the mental health side is really something that you need to spend time staying in tune with, because there's no real reason to go to the dark side. It's to identify those triggers beforehand and make sure that you use whatever tools you've learned in your life to stay in that positive ground. I mean, I have had, I lost a brother to drugs, and me and my brother found him, and I could sit and dwell on that my whole rest of my life, that vision. But I use that more as an example to people that life gives you some hard moments, man. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, but like how you handle those moments are really how you're going to live your life. And if you're going to struggle with moving forward past things that you can't control, well, then life's going to be a real scary, stressful place. You know what I mean? So I try to get that in the youth of you guys today to know, man, just worry about the things you can control. And if shitty things are happening in your life, there's a good chance you're not controlling the controllables.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and coming down today, as I really enjoyed this episode.
Hey, no doubt, man. I appreciate it. I might have talked too much, but hey, it's
No,
better
that
than
was amazing. I really appreciate the things you shared today.
thank you.
Looking
We'll see
forward
you
to
in
seeing you.
practice.
Yep, see your practice this week.
Bye bye.
Thank you. If you enjoyed that episode with Steve Rivera, then you're gonna love the episode I recorded with Navy SEAL Tristan Rizzi. Click here to watch that video, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.